10 o'clock. Call this meeting to order. Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. We're here to hear from the Ambulance Service District Board and get an update. So whoever wants to.
I'd like to start.
I'm gonna start.
No, I'd like to start. So, the big one that I know Commissioner Ghostman here at the last meeting that I would like to bring up as a member of this board is filling of the position. We had one meeting thus far without a quorum, and as you know, we brought Aaron Cagle forward. Long-term chief of the district, came up through the ranks for D1, has worked with IDL, U.S. Forest Service, and you can ask him direct questions, but based on what I believe, we need more people to fill the position that was vacated by Frank Gabriel. We represented Richard Murray Volunteer Fire Department. Aaron has a working relationship with Chief Kavanaugh, DJ, the few remaining individuals up there to assure that we have representation and or at least somebody on the board that each of these districts, fire districts, ambulance side of things can talk with. So first and foremost, I'd like to make sure that's part of the discussion today and moving forward with filling that vacancy.
Okay. I think we'll have to, we don't have an action.
No, but we can put it on the agenda for approval for next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although,
Questions for Aaron?
Yeah.
well, I heard what you called him, so besides that, I'm ignoring that.
Because he likes him.
Yeah. I don't know, anything you'd like to say to us, and what's motivating you to jump in with this motley crew?
Well, mainly just to be able to assist. I mean, that's what got me into the fire service in the first place, was being able to help and be part of it all, do my part for the community. And it seemed like a really good fit, just because of the working knowledge, and it's always seemed to be so beneficial to have people who understand the EMS system on the board, which is why we have the motley crew we have. And always happy to help out with me.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Appreciate your attitude.
I would say that Aaron would be a great asset to us, being the chief for so many years and been in the fire department. He knows all about everything, so he would be great to have.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but since we've started this district, just about all of us are some form or another affiliated with an entity. Reasoning is we know the budgets, finances, and kind of the ins and outs of all this. So he'd be an excellent fit, and he's also, just like the rest of the board, not afraid to speak his mind and jump out and see something. If he thinks it's not right, he's going to say it, and that's kind of why the board's kind of leaning the way we have to anybody that we've replaced or brought in. So I would encourage Aaron to be put on the board.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything nice or otherwise about him? Just countering what Bruce said about him earlier. So, okay.
I had to move one chair down so Mr. Hanson could hear me.
Speak up, Bruce.
Pretty short meeting last week. We got Mr. Pooler did not make. He's on illness situation, so we wish him the best, and hopefully he can rejoin us. That's another reason that we're kind of pushing for Aaron. Summer's coming. People are going to be coming and going all summer. The ambulance situation, knock on wood, guys, we're holding in there, but we got informed that the 2023 models will not be here till 2025, correct, Mr. Moore?
So how many we out now? We just have one or two. We still have two out.
Two on order.
Two on order. And in the meeting, I did express, we set up a budget committee sort of type thing, and they're gonna work on budgets. I would suggest that we still put another ambulance in the budget. This time last year, Horton sent us an update on the ambulances, that the chassis increases was 15 to 20%. At the time we bid them out, they were 300,000. I don't think we're locked into that because of the chassis expenses. So we're looking at possibility of 350 or more per vehicle.
The ones we have ordered already. So
So that looks like we're gonna be probably minimum of $100,000 extra that we weren't counting on.
We can get some final numbers for that too.
Yes.
yeah, if you guys would do that.
And we have the money, all but 108,000 for the two that we ordered.
On the initial price.
The initial price.
Correct.
So the one ambulance that we did have in this year's budget was gonna be 100,000 or whatever the makeup for the last ambulance was gonna make it up. And then with this year's budget, we're gonna put in an ambulance and to still have 3/4 of that other budget sitting there also. So these guys are gonna have to do some juggling of numbers and figure out. We're not sitting bad, but I don't wanna get sitting bad either. And right now the ambulances are holding up. We got one still in the shop with an inverter problem. I think the rest are still running.
Yeah, we do have one in the shop in Coeur d'Alene and one in the shop for another inverter issue in Pinehurst out of 5. So 2 out of 5 are currently out of service.
Yeah.
However, one of those 5, the one in Pinehurst, can be utilized in an emergency situation.
Now the
Completely
inverters,
out.
the inverter seemed like that was what happened.
There was a
before, right?
recall on inverters
Okay.
on 2 of the 3 that we had gotten, and it seems like all the inverters that were, at least in most of the older ambulances, are pretty average to below average inverters, and we're running above average
Yeah.
electricity citizens. So
We're running a lot more electrical with the paramedics and everything, and then it also puts undue stress of having those 2 down to the others.
I think of the new ambulance that we received, I want to say a yearish ago, almost at 50,000 miles. The other 4 are 120 to 160,000 miles.
Yeah.
With the one that's at 125-ish being the actual oldest, but yet least amount of miles in the fleet.
And probably the one that doesn't go down as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
So then just some of the follow-up on that, there's 2 different grant sources for the 2 existing ambulances. They're looking at, Chief Dietrich or Miller are looking at what the time frame is on those as well.
And
If we get into a worst case scenario, that's what kind of makes us nervous because they were supposed to be starting to be released this year. So we all know grant money has timestamps on it, and that's probably one of our highest priorities to make sure.
yes, that's right.
One of those, the ARPA, the local one, we were good to go with that one.
Okay.
The state one is one I need to review.
Okay.
And to see if there's a timeline on that one.
You might want to get with Colleen too, because we're getting down to our final ARPA fund this year, and so there are ways where she indicated that if it's allocated to that source, that you may want to talk to her about it, that it can it has to go towards that, but it doesn't have to be spent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the case. I did reach out to Colleen last week, and I
Yeah.
think we've received the 150 already
Okay.
for that one. So
Yeah.
she gave us the green light with that one. Yeah.
So that's pretty much.
So we buy new ambulances and you go and put 50,000 miles on them, just like that.
Yep.
The call volumes are not going down. I think that's the discussion points from many of these meetings for the last 3.5 years of this. It's not much declines. So
Numbers.
it's crazy.
Declines, and with the implementation of paramedics, transfers are a little bit higher from SMC to anywhere west, because now that we do have paramedics, we're allowed to take a little bit more transfers than we had in the past. So,
And then with, you know, that the monitor that you guys were talking about the other day, can you charge more because of that? I mean, because
that's a good question. I think that question would probably be for Chief Dietrich to see. There's different levels. At this time, I believe we charge kind of a set rate for advanced life support, which would be our advanced EMTs and paramedics, and then a basic life support, which would be our EMTs. I think with the implementation of paramedics, I don't think that rate actually changed. I will ask him. The only other thing I think that we can discuss when it comes down to billing would be itemizing billing, to where whatever we use, we kind of bill for versus just a set rate.
From a business aspect of it, though, the ALS side of things has increased.
Yeah.
So those bills, the billings, potential billings are also higher for that higher rate. So pure business side, yes, to answer your question. We're getting more calls because of the staffing. Or allowing more calls because of the staffing.
And since they are deemed transports, and Chief Cagle can maybe help me out on this one as well, that the rate that Medicare or Medicaid bill, they can't really argue that rate versus a 911 rate. So those are guaranteed billable.
Okay, good.
The transfers are.
Thank you.
Just to update, Shell, Jay, and Timmy, John, and Scott Dietrich, they're all gonna be doing on the budget, correct, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So they will have something very shortly coming back to the advisory board and the commissioners. So we got our meeting set correctly. We're the same day as the county budget.
I think that's what she gave you the other day.
So we will be, I think, first, and then the general budget will be after. And that, I believe, is the 6th of August.
I can confirm that.
Other questions, we've been hashing around is for reimbursements. Shell, do you want to?
I'd like to actually hop on, because we're talking about the budgetary side of things. So we met with Mr. Zimmerman on, I bet it was 4.5, 5 weeks ago or so. Thank you for your time in that. So current fiscal 23-24, we brought to your attention a shortcoming of what we're going to see for the last probably 2-month period for D1 on the contractual billing side of things. That brought up the contract discussion. That brought up a few different things associated with that. So would like Chief Miller to run through those numbers. He's dialed in a little bit more.
Okay. Do we have final numbers, or
Yes.
you do? Oh wow. Okay.
Black and white.
Good. Okay.
So what I have here is kind of the summary of the contracts in there. What I printed out but did not bring with me was kind of the breakdown of every month. I can email you that directly, but the numbers are in there as well. So as you can see, a quick summary is through April. So again, 7 of 12 months. We were at 256,471 of our budgeted 368, or you could say 69% through the budget with only 58% through the year.
Okay.
So 11% higher than expected. The highest monthly total operating expense was $39,682. The lowest was $34,425. So basically, just took the average of that of the 7 months, and that's $36,638. Again, that's through 7 months of this year. So based on that, taking the average for the remaining 5 months, adding it to what's already there, we are looking at $70,740.
Short, right?
Correct.
Okay. Like I kind of emailed you yesterday, I would like to come and talk to the fire board, fire commissioners. So when I do bring it to the our board, they'll have more information and, you know, because it's just going to be easier that way to be able to get more people to talk about how they're going to make it and how they can't make it. So that'll be a big, well, not a big hit, but that'll be a hit to the budget as well. So we'll have to, but talking with you before, it's, something we need to look at.
We just want to get ahead of it, and then
Yeah.
again, starting it 5 weeks ago in the discussion, we know sometimes things take a little bit to churn. Just wanted to be super upfront with it. Chief Miller brought it forward very quickly.
Yep.
Which is the positive side of things.
Yep.
It's hard to base budgets on emergency services. It's been done for numerous years, but along those same lines, for example, within the state of Idaho on the emergency side of things, there's always a budget line that was taken out this last year. If you look to 22-23, we had $100,000 that we put in there for emergency type of expense like this. That was moved out, unbeknownst to me, and how the old process went through the county. It was very unfortunate because that would cover this. So that will be going back into, and that's why I really want Jay, Aaron, everybody involved with who Bruce mentioned on this budget cycle. We're going to take care of this to make sure this line items goes back in.
Okay. So who took it out?
I don't know how it worked. Between the time that met this, talked with Tammy, talked with this W9 or whatever the heck form it was that the county used. I'm not familiar with these ones. But we had a line item moved. And again, it is what it is, unfortunately. We'll deal with it this year. Next budget cycle, we'll have something put back into it because of these situations. If call volumes stay to a certain extent, if an ambulance loses a motor, if these type of things happen, we have to have that dollar figure in here.
Well,
And it was very unfortunate that things got moved around. We had enough in the kitty to cover that as far as the budgetary cycle of incoming and outgoing expenses and with the savings, even with the ambulances. So I don't know how that happened.
Well, one of the things is you probably want to talk to Peggy.
Correct.
And if we can even do that, because since this is a budget for a taxing entity,
Correct.
they don't want you to carry over a lot.
Correct.
And that's one of the things that you'll have to talk to Peggy about it, because if you're carrying over a bunch, they'll say, well, you're overtaxing the people. So, and that's kind of why they put a percentage on it. So I don't know why they would take that out, but Tammy might have had a reason
Okay.
But yeah, we probably want to talk to Peggy just to make sure, because that's what we're trying to do right now is, we want to save for police cars. And there's no real way in a government budget that you can actually save money. And I wish there was, but
there's Idaho code that plays into a deficiency warrant that other agencies operate off.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess my past life exists. Things happen for a reason. Things happen within the emergency services side of things.
Yeah.
And you can look up Idaho code as far as deficiency warrant. For
Deficiency warrant?
Deficiency
warrant. Okay.
For other agencies. There's line items that exist. And again, whether we look at Cooney County boundary, whatever it may look like,
Yeah.
it existed at one point.
Okay.
So I don't understand. We'll have to get to the bottom.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's going to be a line item, and if it can't be a line item, then we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
But it needs to be back in there because we wouldn't have to be opening back up this discussion again for a budget cycle, which just doesn't make sense. It's a waste of everybody's time. If we go into it knowing full well that 1%, 1.5% is available for situations like this.
Okay.
So,
And in that little packet is the contract, and I think kind of what we found about it and what makes us unique is because I don't believe, at least on a District 1 level, it was ever necessarily implemented, and that was the line item that was taken out. It's the only thing highlighted, might be on the third or fourth page, is 3.3. The very last statement says daily staffing reimbursement consists of one full-time position and one on-call position. And I cannot tell you what District 2 uses for their on-call position, and I knew it was something that we had implemented that was new, that was that one line item, but it was titled a different title. Therefore, I didn't quite know that it was the same. It was titled transfers, not on call.
And like I said, I think, if we can get with Peggy, Peggy has been really good about being able to change line items, and we've been able to do that this year, where I think we can, accommodate you guys. We just got to talk to Peggy and Timmy.
Yep.
Timmy will know.
And Chief Miller bringing this up, for example, the reason that we need to focus and get legal to really look at the contract side of things. We have justification and I think some verbiage in there that absolutely needs to be changed to update your guys' responsibility between the ambulance service district and contracting with D1 and D2, and the supplementals going to Avery and Pritchard Murray to make sure there's jives. It needs to be changed. So we need to really focus on that.
Are you guys will be working with Brittany?
That was one of the items that Chief Miller and I brought up to you. So I'm hoping we can get some of that discussion through the representatives of our board.
Yeah.
To get Brittany as tasked with that, because I don't know where it's sitting right now.
Okay.
We did have some verbiage at one time that I know dumped into that office, went into that office, but I don't know where that's sitting at right now.
Okay.
I'll absolutely reach out if it's.
Yeah, if you could, that would be a lot easier since you guys are on the ground with this.
Perfect.
That you can talk to her and
Everything.
now I've talked to her about how the budget or how the contract. My other concern was the contract is an older contract, but it's an auto renewing contract, so that really makes it a lot easier. So that helps.
This is where we want to go from not establishing a 3.3 of what Miller highlighted into. We look at their monthly costs for this next budget cycle. We want a monthly billing and hold accountable the district to that monthly billing. So if we need feedback documentation to get to that budgetary standpoint for 24-25, we're handling that, bring it forward to you. Then it's a monthly flat billing. If something goes outside of that line, then we can have a discussion, but we need a contract to back that up as well.
Okay.
So it needs to really jive going into this 24-25.
Okay.
Point taken. Good.
Thank you.
And then we had one other question that I can think of.
I have one, sorry.
That's two.
I have one.
We have three.
So the budget reflected the EMS, the money that was left over. 28,000. Why was that not sent over to the ambulance service district?
It should be.
When we switched everything over.
It should be. One of the.
According to the article in the paper, it was put into the general budget.
This is my question also. It was about 3 months ago, maybe 4. You guys found EMS they got some back taxes and it was like 28,000. And Peggy put it into the general fund instead of giving it to the ambulance district. And when EMS disbanded, they gave the ambulance district all their assets.
Mm-hmm.
And this should have went into our account instead of the general account.
I agree.
And so you'll have to ask her why.
It was Isha shown.
Pardon me?
It was Isha shown residual.
No, it wasn't East Shoshone taxes. It was the EMS.
Okay.
Because of any East Shoshone,
That's right.
they could have done what they wanted. And
We
this should have went to us.
East Shoshone, I believe, has got like 50 or
I don't know what's
50,000 or something to that, to the effect that we left when we got the 150 when you guys come into office.
Mm-hmm.
We left the residual of that for Pritchard Murray or St. Joe if they needed to get something for emergencies or whatever. We didn't want to take it all, so at least they would have whatever was left.
But the clerk put this money in the general fund?
She said, it was on one of your movies, or not your movies, whatever it was called. She put it in current expense, I believe.
I'll have to take care of that.
It was around 28,000. Back taxes and what there was left.
And I
Taxes they collected later. And the East Shoshone one, when they disbanded, when I first got in here, we put that aside instead of going to the general fund. So it wouldn't get all used up, and that's what we used for training and to give to, and then buy ambulances, and then it was down to, I'm not sure what it was when you guys took over. But I mean, there was nothing in that said you had to give it to the ambulance board.
Right.
Or anybody else. But this 28,000 come from the EMS.
Yep.
Who donated all their assets to us, to the ambulance board.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, we just got to talk to Peggy and see what happened.
That'd be great.
Okay.
So then I guess,
That was my question, so I'm done.
okay, so one more from me. As we moved out of these monthly meetings, the action item, that type of thing, what's the most fluid route? It was under my assumption that whoever it is, Timmy or whoever, what's the best route? Because it would have been nice to have Aaron, for example, as a replacement on this particular one as an action item. And then we also had a discussion about moving forward with the grant proposal for a cardiac monitor, ×2 versus ×1 based on 2025 pricing. We've seen an increase of 20-some%. Maybe you can dive in on.
Yeah, I think the grant covered, so a new cardiac monitor is $47,000. If we were to go for a grant for one, they cover $30,000. If we were to go to a grant for 2 of these monitors, the 30 turns into 40. So it would be, do we want to make room in the budget for 16,000 for one, or around 50,000 for 2?
So the representative board would like to go ahead for an action item for you guys to, the commissioners to go for obviously the 2, based on staffing, the increased costs we've seen the last few years, that type of thing, even though staffing is coming along in some of those instances. End of the day, these are just not going to be cheaper at any point. And we really recommend moving forward with allowing these individuals to put in for the grant proposal for 2, knowing full well that we'll have to potentially budget for 46,000, I think was the total number, if those 2 are acquired. So it gets really funky to me. As how do you do this as a budget type of thing? So we put it on your docket for that recommendation, and then we will then budget it if the grant is awarded. But I don't know if this is something you can allow us to make a decision on and move forward with, or do you want it brought up to here, and then how's that flow of information to making sure it's an action item for this particular meeting?
What you can do is when you get put on the agenda, if you have any action items, get with Sydney,
Okay.
and then if you have you want an approval or a letter for a grant, make sure that goes on there. Our agenda just has to match
Excellent.
what you guys want, what you guys need, and she'll know whether if it's an action item and then she can schedule it.
As far as, and I'm not sure, I think you're asking, do you need our approval to put this grant?
Grant, yes.
It's part of your budget that we're going to approve or disapprove. So I think we're already getting our approval in
That's what I was
at
hoping
that
to
point.
That works out much better.
So I don't see a reason to do it twice.
No.
Okay.
See what I'm
It'd
saying?
be redundant.
We're going to approve the final budget where this number is going to show up anyway. So I don't know why we would approve.
Excellent.
And now we'd have to, if you need a letter of support, we got to do that and all
Yeah.
that. But
I agree.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I didn't get it all.
We don't need that on next week's action item then. We'll handle that.
But we do need, yeah.
It's much different than the other one they're doing. Okay, excellent.
We need Aaron on next month, so.
We need Aaron's on next week.
Please.
Next week. Yeah, we'll do
So we
that
can start that next month.
at the regular, if you put that for the regular consent agenda. I think that would just fit the consent agenda since we've already had the discussion.
And report, thank you.
Anything else, Bruce?
One other thing, Mr. Miller brought to our meeting, did you inform him about the new baby again?
No. So we had another, I guess, it wasn't our home birth, but it was the back of the ambulance birth of a resident in the Kellogg area who we were transporting to the hospital that delivered a child, I think in the Rose Lake area in the back of an ambulance, all successful.
Wow.
No complications. That would be 2, I guess, EMF childbirths in about 6 months.
That's good.
Revival. Or did you have a revival too? Paramedic medication.
medical.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We also, this is more of a common occurrence now that paramedics are in our system. But we did have a gentleman who went to cardiac arrest, and we were performing CPR and some other life-saving measures. It was working well, and the paramedic got there, and after a few paramedic drugs, we're able to get what we term as ROSC, which is return of spontaneous circulation.
Good.
And so that is a much more common theme in our area due to paramedics than it would have been in the past.
So all this effort is resulting in a higher survival rate.
Success rate.
With the cardiac arrest and paramedics, absolutely. That comfort measures for pain are definitely much better and can only be done with paramedics, not the way we were running before.
Sometimes it feels that we need to sell it to you, but I think at the end of the day that we need to, you need to assure that your constituent base is understanding what's going on in these budgets. And the reason that you're bringing to the table probably an expansiveness budget for D1 and covering some expenses that we're not seeing are because of these reasons. And you can pass a red face test in anybody by hearing these successes as far as that goes. So, thank you.
So I think it's important that we hear
Correct.
when it's working. That it's actually.
A lot of people watch these recordings, so,
Mhm.
you know, we're trying to keep things up and above, and we did have 25 in EMT class, basic EMT class, and it's all done. I think they're halfway through testing, maybe.
It should have been tested.
And we got 4 new paramedics
We have 4 in class now, with one of those to be completed this fall, maybe early winter, and the other 3 maybe by next summer-ish. That would raise our numbers from 3 on the line. Dietrich would be number 4. After that, we were looking at anywhere from 7 to 8 by next year.
And when you first started, you had
When
paramedics.
we first started, we actually had
about half.
1, 2, 3. Or kind of currently where we're at now, 3.
Well, before that, we didn't have any paramedics, right?
That's something
they had
that
to come
for
over
so
the hill.
many years we looked at and
Yeah.
we brought it up, and it was always something that we had hoped to get to that
Yeah.
point, but it was always a money issue. It was all, that was the answer every time it got brought up, was, well, we can't afford it. Our county can't afford paramedics. But I gotta tell you how proud it makes me to see it
Yeah.
happening, because I ran personally on so many calls where it's a terrible feeling to show up and you know what this person needs, but you can't give it to them because you
Yeah.
don't have a paramedic.
Yeah.
And
Right.
even worse yet, when that person is, a good example was someone who got injured on the ski hill, and he happened to be a paramedic from Seattle.
Oh, wow.
And
Mm.
the amount of stress that he was under and how flabbergasted he was that we didn't have paramedics, it just, it's a great thing for the community. It means a lot, not only for the cardiac arrest and the childbirths, but for the everyday back injury, for
Yeah.
many medical situations. It changes the game to have paramedics.
Yeah.
And what's it cost?
Well, it costs money.
I mean, ballpark.
Oh,
I want to tell them.
saying like let's say if I'm advanced EMT, which is where we were at, just ballpark figure, nothing close to exact. Let's say I make $45,000 a year, it's going to cost probably about an additional $15,000 per person, and that is still about $15,000 less than they can make with a 30-minute drive to Cootney to be a paramedic.
Well, that may be the pay, but then there's also the equipment, the training, and everything
Right,
else
yeah.
that adds to the cost.
I was just
which is why-
meant for the person himself. To
Yeah.
Is this, these are the ones that got to go to
Yeah,
Boston?
and it's about $15,000 just to go to the school.
Yeah. That's in Boston, right?
It was in Boston. We switched to I think it's in southern Idaho now.
Oh, that's closer. Okay.
So it's closer and it was a little bit cheaper. And that's why we were able to send 3 instead of just 2.
I think it's always important at these that you bring up the success stories that the public that watches is, okay, what am I getting for my tax dollars? Because we get people, you probably got them, who say, I don't get anything for my tax dollars until they need an ambulance, and then they get something for their tax dollars.
And the old guy, John, he's doing fine since they got him back.
So we haven't had to call an
They named the
ambulance.
baby AJ Foy because he was fine with the ambulance.
And I think we also tend to forget that emergency service is essentially customer service. It's a customer service entity. Every call we go on, somebody has a problem, and we have to have a solution to it. And so having the either right equipment to solve the solution or having the equipment to have the ingenuity to make a solution is what we do, even though it's not thought about in that direct manner.
People first and foremost.
Yeah, and the people to administer
Mhm.
and talk them down.
Well, thank you. Bruce, anything else you want?
I don't think so. These guys will be probably calling for a meeting for the budget, and our next meeting is, I believe, the 20th of June.
We'll keep you informed on the budget meetings that Peggy has set out for us too. So as those come along.
So the next ambulance board meeting is the 20th of June, 5 p.m. at District 1 Fire. And if anybody's watching, they want to come, more than welcome. If you got input, we're willing to listen.
And thank you very much. We'll
Yeah.
be using your infrastructure as far as both of the staffing and the legal side of things to get through a few of these discussion points with the contract and budget before coming back. So that just helps immensely.
Yeah.
Because it becomes, what do we make a decision on? Well, let's make the final decision.
Yep.
We appreciate that.
Okay.
Thanks for your time today, gentlemen.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for
All right.
Thank
Well, with that, we are adjourned.